Nagarjuna's on Mindfulness of the Buddha. Part 1. The Easy Practice. Question. Given that this Avaivartika Bodhisattva's initial endeavors are such as previously discussed, one aspiring to reach the ground of the Avaivartika would have to practice all manner of difficult practices for a long time, and only then be able to reach it. This being the case, he might become prone then to fall down onto the grounds of the Shravaka disciples or Pratyeka Buddhas. If that were the case, this would be for him an immensely ruinous calamity. As stated in the Dharma of the provisions essential for Bodhisambhara Shastra, if one were to fall onto the ground of the Shravaka disciples, or onto the ground of the Pratyeka Buddhas, this amounts to death for a Bodhisattva, where he then loses all beneficial effects of his Bodhisattva practice. If one faced the prospect of falling into the hells, he would not become filled with such fear as this. If one were to contemplate falling onto the two vehicles ground, then this would bring about great terror. If one were to fall into the hells, he could still ultimately succeed in reaching Buddhahood. If one were to fall onto the grounds of the two vehicles, however, this would ultimately block the realization of Buddhahood. In the scriptures, the Buddha himself explained matters such as these, stating that this is just as with a person who covets a long lifespan. If he is faced with decapitation, he is then filled with great fear. The Bodhisattva is also just like this. If confronted with the prospect of the Shravaka disciples' ground, or the Pratyeka Buddha's ground, he should react with great terror. Therefore, if as a skillful means the Buddhas have mentioned the existence of an easily practiced path by which one might rapidly succeed in arriving at the ground of the Avaivartika, then please explain it for me. Response. Statements such as you have just made are symptomatic of a weak, pusillanimous, and inferior mind devoid of the great resolve. These are not the words of a heroic man possessed of determination and ability. How is this so? If a person has brought forth the vow to strive for the realization of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, during that interim period in which he has not yet gained the Avaivartika stage, he must not be sparing of even his own body or life. Rather, he should strive with vigor both day and night, acting with the same urgency to save himself as someone whose turban has just caught fire. This is as is stated in the Bodhisambhara Shastra. So long as the Bodhisattva has not yet succeeded in reaching the ground of Avaivartika, he should always diligently practice vigor, acting with the urgency of one whose turban has caught fire. Taking up the heavy burden for the sake of striving to attain Bodhi, he should always act with diligent vigor, refraining from developing an indolent mind. Even were one to seek the Shravaka disciples' vehicle, or the Pratyeka Buddha's vehicle, thus seeking only to perfect one's own benefit, even then one should always diligently practice vigor. How much the more should this be so in the case of the Bodhisattva, one who strives to liberate both himself and others. Compared to these men of the two vehicles, he should be a koti's number of times more vigorous than they are. In speaking of the practice of the great vehicle, the Buddha described it thus. As for generating the vow to attain Buddhahood, it is a challenge heavier than lifting all of the worlds in a great trichiliocosm. As for your saying, this Dharma of the Avaivartika ground is so extremely difficult to accomplish that one can only reach it after a long time, and If there were only some easily traveled path by which one could swiftly reach the Avaivartika ground, these are the words of those who are weak and inferior. These are not statements of a great man possessed of determination and ability. Still, if you definitely do wish to hear of the skillful means, then I shall now explain it for you. The Dharma of the Buddhas has measurelessly many gateways. This is just as with the world's various routes, among which there are those that are difficult and those that are easy. When taking overland routes, the traveling may involve suffering, whereas in the case of water routes where one boards a boat, it may instead be pleasurable. So too it is in the case of the Bodhisattva path. In some instances, one is diligently devoted to the practice of vigor, whereas in others that involve faith and skillful means, one adopts an easy practice by which one swiftly arrives at the station of the Avaivartika. This is as described in the following verse. In the East, there is Meritorious Qualities Buddha. In the South, there is Chandana Qualities Buddha. In the West, there is Measureless Light Buddha. In the North, there is Emblematic Qualities Buddha. In the Southeast, there is Sorrowless Qualities Buddha. In the Southwest, there is Giver of Jewels Buddha. In the Northwest, there is Floral Qualities Buddha. In the Northeast, there is Three Vehicles Practices Buddha. Toward the nadir, there is Brilliant Qualities Buddha. Toward the zenith, there is Vast Multitude of Qualities Buddha. Bhagavats such as these now abide throughout the 10 directions. If a person wishes to swiftly reach the ground of irreversibility, he should, with a reverential mind, take up and maintain the practice of invoking these Buddha's names. If a bodhisattva wishes in this very body to succeed in reaching the ground of the Avaivartika, and then attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, then he should bear in mind these Buddhas of the 10 directions and invoke their names. This is just as explained in the Avaivartika chapter of the sutra spoken in response to the questions of the youth Precious Moon, in which the Buddha told Precious Moon, off in the east, going beyond a number of Buddha lands equal to the sands in a measureless, boundless, and inconceivable number of Ganges rivers, there is a world system named Sorrowless. Its ground is level and composed of the 7 precious things. Strands of purple powdered gold are woven throughout that realm, and rows of jeweled trees serve as adornments there. There are no destinies of the hells, animals, hungry ghosts, or asuras, nor are there any places beset by difficulties. It is pure, free of any filth, and also free of gravel, ceramic shards, stones, mountains, hillocks, deep pits, and dark ravines. The devas always rain down flowers that cover its ground. That world now has a Buddha named Meritorious Qualities Tathagata, worthy of offerings, of right and universal enlightenment, perfect in knowledge and conduct, well gone one, knower of the worlds, unsurpassable one, tamer of those to be tamed, teacher of devas and humans, Buddha, Bhagavat. He is respectfully surrounded by an assembly of great bodhisattvas. His body's characteristic radiance and appearance are like a great flaming gold mountain and like a great aggregation of precious jewels. For the sake of everyone in that assembly, he extensively proclaims the right Dharma that is good in the beginning, middle, and end, and is eloquently presented and meaningful. Whatever he proclaims is free of admixture, perfect in its purity, accordant with reality, and free of error. What is meant by free of error? It is free of any error with respect to the four great elements of earth, water, fire, and wind. It is free of any error with respect to the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm, and is free of error with respect to the five aggregates of form, feeling, perceptions, formative factors, and consciousness. Precious moon, from the time this Buddha achieved Buddhahood until the present, 60 kotis of kalpas have passed. Moreover, in that Buddha's country, there is no difference between the day and the night. It is only by reference to the enumeration of days, months, and years of Jambudvipa that one describes his lifetime in terms of a particular number of kalpas. The light from that Buddha always illuminates that world. In the course of a single discourse on Dharma, he causes a measureless and boundless number of thousands of myriads of kotis of asamkhiyas of beings to abide in the unproduced Dharma's patience. Twice this number of people are thereby caused to abide in the first, second, and third type of patience. Precious moon, the power of that Buddha's original vows is such that if there are any beings in other regions who have planted roots of goodness under a previous Buddha, he need only be touched by this Buddha's light in order to immediately attain the unproduced Dharma's patience. Precious moon, if there is a son or daughter of good family who but hears this Buddha's name and is then able to have faith and accept him, such a person will immediately achieve irreversibility with respect to the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. The circumstances related to the other 9 Buddhas are just like this. Now we shall explain the names of those Buddhas, as well as the names of their lands. As for Meritorious Qualities Buddha, his qualities are associated with pure goodness and the possession of peace and happiness. They are unlike the meritorious qualities of devas, dragons, and spirits which delude and trouble beings. As for Chandana Qualities Buddha in the south, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculable and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world named Delightful. The name of the Buddha there is Chandana Qualities. He is right now proclaiming the Dharma that is as fragrant and cooling as Chandana. The fame of that Buddha's name is heard afar, circulating and spreading about like the fragrance of incense. It extinguishes the heat from the fire of being's 3 poisons, and thereby causes them to experience refreshing coolness. As for Measureless Light Buddha, off in the west, at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world named Excellence. That Buddha is named Measureless Light. He is at this very time proclaiming the Dharma. The light from that Buddha's body and the brilliant illumination from this wisdom reach an incalculable and boundless distance. As for Emblematic Qualities Buddha, off in the north, at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world known as Immovable. Its Buddha is known as Emblematic Qualities. He is right now proclaiming the Dharma. That Buddha's meritorious qualities are lofty and prominently displayed, appearing like a banner. As for Sorrowless Qualities Buddha in the southeast, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world named Lunar Brilliance. The Buddha who abides there is named Sorrowless Qualities. He is even now proclaiming the Dharma. That Buddha's spiritual qualities are such that they cause all of the devas and men there to be free of any sort of sorrow. As for Giver of Jewels Buddha in the southwest, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world named Multitude of Signs. The Buddha who abides there is known as Giver of Jewels. Even now he is proclaiming the Dharma. That Buddha always bestows on beings the jewels of the uncontaminated root faculties, powers, limbs of enlightenment, the path, and so forth. As for Floral Qualities Buddha in the northwest, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world known as Multitude of Sounds. The Buddha who abides there is known as Floral Qualities. Even now, he is proclaiming the Dharma. That Buddha's physical body is like a marvelous flower, and his meritorious qualities are incalculably numerous. As for Three Vehicles Practices Buddha in the northeast, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world known as Peaceful and Secure. The Buddha who abides there is known as Three Vehicles Practices Buddha. Even now, he is proclaiming the Dharma. That Buddha always explains the practices of the Shravaka disciples, the practices of the Pratyeka Buddhas, and the practices of the Bodhisattvas. There are those who state that it is because he explains the superior, the middling, and the lesser levels of vigor that he is named Three Vehicles Practices. As for Brilliant Qualities Buddha in the nadir, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands, as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world known as Expansive. The Buddha who abides there is known as Brilliant Qualities. Even now, he is proclaiming the Dharma. Brilliant refers to the light that shines from his body, the light of his wisdom, and the light that shines from his jeweled tree. These three kinds of brilliance always illuminate that world. As for Vast Multitude of Qualities Buddha in the zenith, off at a distance from here of Buddha lands as numerous as the sands in incalculably and boundlessly many Ganges rivers, there is a world known as Many Moons. The Buddha who abides there is known as Vast Multitude of Qualities. Even now, he is proclaiming the Dharma. It is because the meritorious qualities of that Buddha's disciples are vast that he is known as Vast Multitude of Qualities. Now, as for these Buddhas of the 10 directions, beginning with Meritorious Qualities Buddha, and concluding with Vast Multitude of Qualities Buddha, if a person single-mindedly invokes their names, he will thereby immediately succeed in gaining irreversibility with respect to the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. This is as described in a verse. If there is a person who is able to hear the utterance of all the Buddha's names, he will immediately acquire countless meritorious qualities, just as was explained for Precious Moon. I bow in reverence to these Buddhas, presently abiding throughout the 10 directions. Whosoever invokes their names immediately attains irreversibility. Off in the east, in the realm known as sorrowless, that Buddha named Meritorious Qualities has a form resembling a mountain of gold. The reach of his fame is boundless. If a person so much as hears his name, he immediately attains irreversibility. With palms pressed together, I now bow in reverence to him and pray that worries and afflictions may be entirely dispelled. Off in the south, in the realm known as delightful, there is a Buddha named Chandana Qualities. His countenance is as pristine as the full moon, and the radiance of his light is measureless. He is able to bring about the extinguishing of beings' fiery afflictions produced by the 3 poisons. If one but hears his name, he then attains irreversibility. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. Off in the west, in a realm known as excellence, there is a Buddha known as Limitless Light. The light from his body and the brilliance of his wisdom are boundless in the range of their illumination. If there be anyone who but hears his name, he will immediately attain irreversibility. I now bow down in reverence to him, praying that I might put an end to the limits imposed by samsara. Off in the north, in a realm known as Immovable, there is a Buddha named Emblematic Qualities. His body is replete with the many signs and minor characteristics with which he is personally adorned. He utterly defeats the hordes of Mara, the enemy, and skillfully teaches both humans and devas. Those who hear his name attain irreversibility. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. Off in the southeast, in a world known as lunar brilliance, there is a Buddha named Sorrowless. His illumination surpasses that of the sun and the moon. Those who encounter it are thus able to extinguish their afflictions. He always explains the Dharma for the sake of the multitude, thus ridding them of all inward and outward sufferings. The Buddhas of the 10 directions praise him. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. Off in the southwest, in a realm known as Multitude of Signs, there is a Buddha named Giver of Jewels. He always uses all manner of Dharma jewels to engage in extensive universal giving. All the devas bow down in reverence to him, so that their jeweled crowns are brought low at his feet. I now, bowing in reverence with all 5 extremities, take refuge in the Bhagavat, Giver of Jewels. Off in the northwest, in a realm known as Multitude of Sounds, there is a Buddha named Floral Qualities. That world is graced with an abundance of jeweled trees that send forth sounds expounding the sublime Dharma. He always uses the flowers of the 7 limbs of enlightenment to bestow adornments on those beings. His mid-brow, white hair tuft mark is like the moon. I now bow down in reverence to him. Off in the northeast, in a world known as peaceful and secure, one that is composed of all manner of jewels, there is a Buddha named 3 Vehicles Practices, whose body is adorned with measureless marks. The light from his wisdom is measureless. It is able to dispel the darkness of ignorance and cause beings to become free of worry and afflictions. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. Off toward the zenith, in a world known as many moons, adorned with many types of jewels, attended by a congregation of greatly virtuous Shravaka disciples and bodhisattvas who are incalculable in number, there is a lion among the Aryas, named Vast Multitude of Qualities. He is feared by all the Maras. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. Off toward the nadir, there is a world known as expansive, in which there is a Buddha named Brilliant Qualities. His physical marks are far more marvelous, even than a mountain of Jambunanta gold. He always uses the sun of his wisdom to open the blossoms of being's roots of goodness. His land of jewels is extremely vast. From afar I bow down in reverence to him. In the past, countless kalpas ago, there was a Buddha named Oceanic Meritorious Qualities. These Buddhas of the present era all made their vows under him. His lifespan was incalculably long, and the reach of his light's illumination was endless. His country was extremely pure. Those hearing his name become definitely bound for Buddhahood. These Buddhas, who now abide in the 10 directions, are completely equipped with the 10 powers. I therefore bow down in reverence to them, these most venerable ones among all humans and devas. Question: is it the case that one may only be able to reach irreversibility with respect to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi through hearing these 10 Buddhas' names and bearing them in mind? Or is it the case that there are yet other Buddhas and other Bodhisattvas' names through which one may succeed in reaching the station of the Avaivartika? Response: there is Amitabha and also other such Buddhas, as well as the great Bodhisattvas. If one invokes their names and single-mindedly bears them in mind, one will also thereby attain irreversibility. In addition, there is Amitabha, as well as other Buddhas to whom one should also respectfully bow down in reverence and utter their names. I shall now set forth their names in full. Limitless Life Buddha, King of Sovereign Mastery in the World Buddha, Lion Mind Buddha, Dharma Mind Buddha, Brahman Signs Buddha, World Signs Buddha, Sublimity of the World Buddha, Kindness and Compassion Buddha, World King Buddha, King among Men Buddha, Moon-like Virtues Buddha, Precious Virtues Buddha, Qualities of the Marks Buddha, Great Marks Buddha, Jeweled Canopy Buddha, Lion Mane Buddha, Destroyer of Ignorance Buddha, Flower of Wisdom Buddha, Tamalapatra Chandana Fragrance Buddha, and Upholder of Great Meritorious Qualities Buddha. There are also Reign of the 7 Precious Things Buddha, Excellent Bravery Buddha, Enmity Transcendence Buddha, Great Adornment Buddha, Signlessness Buddha, Jewel Treasury Buddha, Summit of Virtue Buddha, Tagara Fragrance Buddha, Chandana Incense Buddha, Lotus Fragrance Buddha, Adorned Path Buddha, Dragon Canopy Buddha, Rain of Flowers Buddha, Scatterer of Flowers Buddha, Floral Radiance Buddha, Solar Voice Buddha, Eclipsing the Sun and Moon Buddha, Lapis Lazuli Treasury Buddha, Brahman Sound Buddha, and Pure Radiance Buddha. There are also Treasury of Gold Buddha, Sumeru Summit Buddha, King of the Mountains Buddha, Masterful Voice Buddha, Pure Eyes Buddha, Lunar Radiance Buddha, Mount Sumeru Likeness Buddha, Sun and Moon Buddha, Acquirer of Multitudes Buddha, Flower-born Buddha, Proclaimer of the Brahman Sounds Buddha, Lord of the Worlds Buddha, Lion-like Practice Buddha, Sublime Dharma Mind Lion's Roar Buddha, Pearl Canopy Coral Appearance Buddha, Dispeller of the Darkness of Delusion and Desire Buddha, Water Moon Buddha, Multitude of Flowers Buddha, Opener of Wisdom Buddha, and Retainer of Various Jewels Buddha. There are also Bodhi Buddha, Flower Transcendence Buddha, Radiance of True Lapis Lazuli Buddha, Outshining Sunlight Buddha, Retainer of Great Qualities Buddha, Realizer of Right Wisdom Buddha, Heroic Strength Buddha, Beyond Flattery and Deception Buddha, Dispensing with Planting Roots of Evil Buddha, Great Fragrance Buddha, Path Splendor Buddha, Water Light Buddha, Roamer in Oceanic Clouds of Wisdom Buddha, Virtue Summit Flower Buddha, Floral Adornment Buddha, Solar Voice Buddha, Lunar Supremacy Buddha, Lapis Lazuli Buddha, Brahma-like Voice Buddha, and Light Buddha. There are also Treasury of Gold Buddha, Mountain Summit Buddha, Mountain King Buddha, Sound King Buddha, Dragon Vigor Buddha, Stainless Buddha, Pure Countenance Buddha, Lunar Countenance Buddha, Sumeru Semblance Buddha, Chandana Fragrance Buddha, Awesome Strength Buddha, Blazing Lamp Buddha, Difficult to Overcome Buddha, Precious Virtue Buddha, Joyous Sound Buddha, Radiance Buddha, Dragon Supremacy Buddha, Defilement Transcendence Light Buddha, Lion Buddha, and King Among Kings Buddha. And there are also Supremacy of Powers Buddha, Floral Garden Buddha, Fearless Brilliance Buddha, Fragrant Summit Buddha, Universal Worthy Buddha, Universal Flower Buddha, and Precious Signs Buddha. These Buddhas, Bhagavats, abide now in pure worlds throughout the 10 directions. One should invoke the names of all of them and bear them in mind. The original vows of Amitabha are of this sort. If any person bears me in mind, invokes my name, and takes refuge in me, he will immediately enter the stage of certainty with respect to attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. One should therefore always remain mindful of him. I set forth his praises here with a verse. He possesses boundless illumination and wisdom, and his body is like a mountain of gold. Paying homage to him with body, speech, and mind, I now place my palms together and bow down in reverence to him. His marvelous golden-colored light everywhere streams into all worlds, increasing in its brilliance in response to each being. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. If, when life's end comes, a person succeeds in being reborn in that land, he immediately acquires countless meritorious qualities. I do therefore take refuge in him. Whoever is able to bear in mind this Buddha, possessed of measureless powers and awe-inspiring qualities, will immediately enter the stage of certainty. I do therefore always bear him in mind. That land is such that if at the end of one's life one should otherwise undergo all manner of suffering, even so one will not then fall into those terrible hells. Therefore, taking refuge in him, I now bow down in reverence. If a person gains rebirth in his land, he will never again fall into the 3 wretched destinies, or into the realms of the asuras. Taking refuge in him, I now bow down in reverence. Though his body is similar to that of humans and devas, it resembles the summit of a mountain of gold. This is the place to which all supreme qualities return. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. Those who have been reborn in his land gain the powers of the heavenly ear and eye that reach unimpededly throughout the 10 directions. I bow down in reverence to the one honored among the Aryas. All beings in his land perform supernatural transformations, know others' thoughts, and are endowed with the knowledge of past lives as well. Therefore, taking refuge in him, I bow down in reverence. Those who are reborn in his land have no conception of either I or mine. They do not have thoughts conceiving of others or self. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. He has stepped beyond the prison of the 3 realms. His eyes are like the petals of a lotus. The assembly of Shravaka disciples there is measurelessly vast. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. All the beings in his land are in nature gentle and harmonious, and they naturally practice the 10 good deeds. I bow down in reverence to this king of the many Aryas. It is from such goodness that his pure light is produced, that in the number of its rays is measureless and boundless. He is foremost among those who stand on 2 feet. I do therefore take refuge in him. If a person vows to become a Buddha, and then bears in mind Amitabha, when the time is right, he will appear for his sake. I do therefore take refuge in him. Through the power of that Buddha's vows, the Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions come to make offerings and listen to the Dharma. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. All the Bodhisattvas in his land are endowed with all the major marks and secondary characteristics, by which they thereby adorn their own bodies. Taking refuge in him, I now bow down in reverence. 3 times every day, all those great Bodhisattvas make offerings to the Buddhas of the 10 directions. I therefore bow down in reverence. If a person who has planted roots of goodness retains doubts, then the flower will not open. If one's mind of faith is pure, the flower will open and one will then see the Buddha. For many different reasons, the Buddhas of the present throughout the 10 directions praise the qualities of that Buddha. Taking refuge in him, I now bow down in reverence. His land is especially majestic in its adornment, surpassing in its excellence the palaces of all the devas. Its qualities are especially profound and abundant. I therefore bow down in reverence at the feet of the Buddha. The Buddha's feet carry the sign of the 1,000-spoked wheel. They are soft and, in appearance, resemble the blossoms of a lotus. Those who see them are all filled with delight and bow down their heads in reverence at the feet of the Buddha. The light from the white hair tuft between his brows appears like a pristinely shining moon, enhancing the radiance displayed by his countenance. I bow down in reverence at the feet of the Buddha. When he originally sought out the path to Buddhahood, he performed all manner of distinctive and marvelous works. These are just as described in the sutras. I bow down in reverence to him. That which is proclaimed by that Buddha eliminates the roots of karmic offenses. His eloquent discourse brings benefit to many. I now bow down in reverence to him. By resorting to such eloquent discourse, he rescues beings from all maladies arising by clinging to pleasures. He has already liberated such beings and now liberates yet more. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. The devas bow down in reverence to he who is the most honored of all humans and devas. Their 7 jeweled crowns are brought low and touch his feet. I do therefore take refuge in him. The Sangha of all the worthies and the Aryas, as well as the multitudes of humans and devas, all join in taking refuge in him. Therefore I too bow down in reverence to him. One who boards his ship of the Eightfold Path will be able to cross beyond that sea so difficult to cross, delivering himself to liberation while liberating others as well. I bow in reverence to he who has achieved sovereign mastery in this. If, for countless kalpas, the Buddhas proclaimed their praises of his meritorious qualities, they would still be unable to come to the end of them. I take refuge in he who has become such a purified person. In this manner, I now proclaim the praises of his boundless qualities. I pray that, due to the causes and conditions of this merit, the Buddha may therefore always bear me in mind. By whatever merit I have created in the present or previous lives, whether it be but little or much, I pray that my mind will become forever purified in the very presence of the Buddha. As for the supremely marvelous qualities that may be acquired through the causes and conditions of such merit as this, I pray that all of the many varieties of beings shall all become able to acquire them as well. One should also bear in mind Vipassana Buddha, Shikhin Buddha, Vishvabhu Buddha, Krakuchanda Buddha, Kanakamuni Buddha, Kashyapa Buddha, and Shakyamuni Buddha, as well as Maitreya, the future Buddha. One should bear them all in mind and bow down in reverence to them. I set forth their praises here in verse. The Bhagavat Vipassana abides beneath an Ashoka Bodhi tree, having perfected all knowledge and all of the subtle and marvelous meritorious qualities. Having rightly contemplated the world, his mind has succeeded in gaining liberation. I now, with all five extremities, bow down in reverence, taking refuge in that unsurpassable honored one. The Bhagavat Shikhin Buddha sat in the Bodhi Manda beneath a Pundarika Bodhi tree, where he then achieved the complete realization of Bodhi. His physical appearance is incomparable. It resembles a mountain of flaming purple gold. I now take refuge in the Honored One, who is unsurpassed by anyone in the three realms of existence. Vishvabhu Bhagavat sits beneath the Sala tree, where he naturally acquired the penetrating comprehension of all forms of sublime wisdom. Among all humans and devas, he is the foremost and without peer. I do therefore take refuge in the Honored One, who is the most supreme among them all. Krakuchanda Buddha succeeded in attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi beneath the Shirisha tree. He perfected the great wisdom and became forever liberated from samsara. I now take refuge and bow in reverence to that supreme and incomparable Honored One. Kanakamuni, the great Arya and unsurpassable Honored One, attained the perfect realization of Buddhahood beneath the Udumbara tree, and reached the penetrating comprehension of all the measurelessly and boundlessly many dharmas. I do therefore take refuge in him, that foremost and unsurpassable Honored One. Kashyapa Buddha, the Bhagavat, with eyes like a pair of lotus blossoms, achieved the perfect realization of Buddhahood beneath the Nyagrodha tree. Throughout the three realms there is nothing he fears. His gait is like that of the king of the elephants. I now take refuge in him, bowing down in reverence to that insurpassable Honored One. Shakyamuni Buddha, beneath the Ashvatha tree, conquered Mara, the enemy, and perfected the unsurpassed enlightenment. His countenance is like the full moon, pure and free of any blemish. I now bow down in reverence to that heroically brave and supreme honored one. Maitreya, the Buddha of the future, sitting beneath the Naga tree, shall attain the perfect realization of the vast resolve, and then, naturally, realize Buddhahood. His meritorious qualities are so extremely solid and durable that no one is able to surpass them. I do therefore take refuge in him, that incomparable king of the sublime Dharma. Additionally, there are Supreme and Meritorious Qualities Buddha, Universal Illumination Buddha, Victorious over Adversaries Buddha, Marks of the Sovereign Buddha, King of the Marks Buddha, King of Measureless Qualities, Brilliance, and Sovereign Mastery Buddha, Unimpeded Medicine King Buddha, Jeweled Traveler Buddha, Precious Flower Buddha, Peacefully Abiding Buddha, and Mountain King Buddha. One should remain mindful of them as well, respectfully bowing in reverence to them. I set forth their praises here in verse. In the world known as Invincible, there is a Buddha named Supreme in Meritorious Qualities. I now bow down in reverence to him, as well as to his Dharma jewel and his Sangha jewel. In a world known as Joy in Whatever One Wishes, there is a Buddha named Universal Illumination. I now take refuge in him, as well in his Dharma jewel and his Sangha jewel. In the world known as Universal Excellence, there is a Buddha named Victorious over Adversaries. I now take refuge in him and bow down in reverence to him, as well as to his Dharma jewel and his Sangha jewel. In the world known as Accumulation of Goodness and Purity, there is a Buddha named Marks of the Sovereign's Banner. I now bow down in reverence to him, as well as to his Dharma jewel and his Sangha jewel. In the world known as Accumulation of Stainlessness, there is a Buddha named Measureless Qualities Brilliance, whose sovereign mastery extends throughout the 10 directions. I therefore bow down in reverence to him. In the world known as Undeceptive, there is a Buddha named Unimpeded Medicine King. I now bow down in reverence to him, as well as to his Dharma jewel and his Sangha jewel. In the world known as Present Accumulation, there is a Buddha named Jeweled Traveler. I now bow down in reverence to him, as well as to his Dharma jewel and his Sangha jewel. In the beautiful sound world, there is Precious Flower Buddha. So too, peacefully established and Mountain King Buddhas. I now bow down in reverence to them, as well as to their Dharma jewels and the Sangha jewels. All of these Tathagatas now abide off in regions to the east. With a respectful mind I spread their praises, and taking refuge in them, bow down in reverence to them. I only pray that the Tathagatas will bestow their deep kindness and sympathy, and thus manifest their bodies before me, so that I might be allowed to personally see them all. Additionally, one should exhaustively and comprehensively bear in mind and respectfully bow in reverence to all Buddhas of the past, the future, and the present. I set forth their praises here in verse. All Buddhas of the past conquered the many Maras, their adversaries, and using the power of great wisdom, provided vast benefit to beings. The beings who existed in those eras were entirely devoted to making offerings to them all, showed them reverence, and proclaimed their praises. I therefore bow down in reverence to them. The incalculably many Buddhas of the present, throughout the worlds of the 10 directions, are so measurelessly and boundlessly many as to surpass the number of sands in the Ganges River. Out of kindness and pity for beings, they always turn the wheel of the sublime Dharma. I do therefore accord them respect, take refuge in them, and bow down my head to them in reverence. The Buddhas of the future shall appear with bodies resembling mountains of gold that emanate measureless illumination and display the self-adornment of their many characteristic signs. They shall appear in the world and liberate beings, after which they shall then enter nirvana. To all Bhagavats as these, I do now bow down in reverence. Additionally, one should bear in mind the great Bodhisattvas, namely, Good Intentions Bodhisattva, Good Eyes Bodhisattva, Moon Hearer Bodhisattva, King Shibi Bodhisattva, Universally Supreme Bodhisattva, Knower of the Great Earth Bodhisattva, Great Medicine Bodhisattva, Kapotagarbha Bodhisattva, Arenemin Bodhisattva, Summit-born King Bodhisattva, Delightful View Bodhisattva, Uttara Bodhisattva, Sarvadana Bodhisattva, Long Life King Bodhisattva, Santi Bodhisattva, Velama Bodhisattva, Flashing Light Bodhisattva, Moon Covering Bodhisattva, Brilliant Leader Bodhisattva, Dharma Leader Bodhisattva, Perfecting Benefit Bodhisattva, and Maitreya Bodhisattva. In addition, there are Vajragarbha Bodhisattva, Vajra Leader Bodhisattva, Treasury of Non-Defilement Bodhisattva, Vimalakirti Bodhisattva, Dispeller of Doubts Bodhisattva, Undefiled Virtue Bodhisattva, Net-like Brilliance Bodhisattva, Immeasurable Brilliance Bodhisattva, Great Brilliance Bodhisattva, Akshayamati Bodhisattva, Mind King Bodhisattva, Boundless Mind Bodhisattva, Sun Sound Bodhisattva, Moon Sound Bodhisattva, Beautiful sound Bodhisattva. Beautiful voice Bodhisattva. Great voice Bodhisattva. Solid vigor Bodhisattva. Ever solid Bodhisattva. And solidly generated Bodhisattva. There are also Adornment King Bodhisattva, Ever Compassionate Bodhisattva, Never Slighting Bodhisattva, Dharma Superior Bodhisattva, Dharma Mind Bodhisattva, Dharma Joy Bodhisattva, Dharma Leader Bodhisattva, Dharma Accumulation Bodhisattva, Generator of Vigor Bodhisattva, Wisdom Bodhisattva, Pure Awesome Virtue Bodhisattva, Narayana Bodhisattva, Good Meditation Bodhisattva, Dharma Meditation Bodhisattva, Bhadrapala Bodhisattva, Dharma Benefit Bodhisattva, Lofty Virtue Bodhisattva, Lion Traveler Bodhisattva, Joyous Faculties Bodhisattva, and Supreme Jewel Moon Bodhisattva. There are also Virtue Free of Falseness Bodhisattva, Dragon Virtue Bodhisattva, Manjushri Bodhisattva, Wonderful Sound Bodhisattva, Cloud Sound Bodhisattva, Supreme Mind Bodhisattva, Illuminating Brilliance Bodhisattva, Brave Assembly Bodhisattva, Supreme Assembly Bodhisattva, Awesome Deportment Bodhisattva, Lion Mind Bodhisattva, Superior Mind Bodhisattva, Beneficial Intentions Bodhisattva, Augmented Mind Bodhisattva, Precious Brilliance Bodhisattva, Wisdom Summit Bodhisattva, Peak of Eloquence Bodhisattva, Possessed of Virtue Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara King Bodhisattva, and Dharani Mastery King Bodhisattva. There are also Great Sovereign Mastery King Bodhisattva, Sorrowless Virtue Bodhisattva, Not Seen in Vain Bodhisattva, Beyond the Wretched Destinies Bodhisattva, Universally Brave and Strong Bodhisattva, Dispeller of Darkness Bodhisattva, Merit Jewel Bodhisattva, Floral Awesome Virtue Bodhisattva, Gold Necklace Brilliant Virtue Bodhisattva, Beyond the Aggregates and Hindrances Bodhisattva, Unimpeded Mind Bodhisattva, Pure in All Actions Bodhisattva, Equal Vision Bodhisattva, Unequaled Vision Bodhisattva, Wandering Joyfully in Samadhi Bodhisattva, Sovereign Mastery in Dharma Bodhisattva, Dharma Marks Bodhisattva, Brilliant Adornment Bodhisattva, Great Adornment Bodhisattva, and Jeweled Summit Bodhisattva. There are also Jeweled Mudra Hand Bodhisattva, Ever Raised Hand Bodhisattva, Ever Lowered Hand Bodhisattva, Ever Piteous Bodhisattva, Ever Joyful Bodhisattva, Joy King Bodhisattva, Possessed of Eloquent Voice Bodhisattva, Sound of Thunder in Space Bodhisattva, Upholder of the Jeweled Torch Bodhisattva, Valiant Giving Bodhisattva, Imperial Net Bodhisattva, Horse-Light Bodhisattva, Empty and Unimpeded Bodhisattva, Jeweled Supremacy Bodhisattva, Celestial King Bodhisattva, Demon Crusher Bodhisattva, Lightning Virtue Bodhisattva, Sovereign Mastery Bodhisattva, Summit Sign Bodhisattva, and Beyond Transgressions Bodhisattva. And there are also Lion's Roar Bodhisattva, Cloud Shade Bodhisattva, Able to Conquer Bodhisattva, Mountainous Marks Banner Bodhisattva, Fragrant Elephant Bodhisattva, Great Fragrant Elephant Bodhisattva, White Fragrant Elephant Bodhisattva, Ever Vigorous Bodhisattva, Never Resting Bodhisattva, Sublime Birth Bodhisattva, Floral Adornment Bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva, Water King Bodhisattva, Mountain King Bodhisattva, Indra's Net Bodhisattva, Jewel Giving Bodhisattva, Crusher of Demons Bodhisattva, Adorner of Lands Bodhisattva, Golden Topknot Bodhisattva, and Pearl Topknot Bodhisattva. One should bear in mind all such bodhisattvas and bow down to them in reverence as one seeks to attain the ground of the Avaivartika.